Up here long at all because those two little girls just stole my thunder. They said it all right there. Basically, talking about the four realms of heart or the four kinds of love. When you're first born, how many people remember when they were born? Nobody, right? Come on. Now sometimes people say, if they get hypnotized or if they go into some deep meditation, they go back and they say, I can remember when I was born. I don't think so. Because when you were first born, you really didn't know your identity. It took several years before you began to realize that you existed as a person. You started to have your own identity as a human being. Your parents gave you a name. They taught you a language. They began, they took complete care of you. They fed you. They changed your diapers, everything. You couldn't do anything by yourself. You would die immediately. But your parents were there, and you began to realize, whoa, I exist. I am a person, and you had a name. My name's John. I'm John Pace, and I have this identity. And it took several years, before I realized that I have a unique individual identity. But as you're growing up, you begin to realize, wait a minute, I'm not the only person that exists. I have my parents taking care of me. And then I had my brother Jim eventually, about 4 years later, a brother Steve. And also you start to have your friends, and you begin to interact with people. But all that time, your parents are taking care of you. So you're receiving love from your parents. So all you're doing is taking. But as you get a little older, you begin taking and giving. Especially if you have siblings. They talked about fighting with each other, and the parents come and break it up. What do they usually fight about? They want each other's toys, or, no, your ice cream cone is bigger than mine, or I want, but you learn how to relate. It's a different realm of relationship. First, you're just receiving love, and then you begin to interact and share mutual relationship of love. But as time goes on, and you become 12, 13, 15 years old, as a young teenager, something else happens. You start to become attracted to someone from the opposite sex. God didn't just create Adam or Eve, but as the girls pointed out, created both. And in fact, none of us would be here if we didn't have parents. So you don't exist without parents. But what happens is, as you get older, you begin to interact with someone of the opposite sex, and you're attracted to them, and then you unite with them, and you create a marriage relationship, a bond of heart between a man and a woman, and then through that union, through that relationship, physical and spiritual, the spouse becomes pregnant and has a child, and then you give birth. And if you're a man, you're no longer just an individual man, or you're no longer just a husband, but you become a father. And if you're a woman, you're no longer just a wife, but you become a mother. And together, the two of you are parents. And now, you are the ones that are working hard and taking care and struggling and having to provide for your children. So you go through this process. It's this cycle, this circle of love. You start by just receiving. You learn how to give and take. You get old enough. You have a husband-wife relationship, and then you have your own children. And then as these children start to grow, you learn so much about yourself. You really learn about yourself. And I'll be very honest with you. Until my daughters had their own children, I didn't really appreciate the role of my own mother or my own wife taking care of our children. Because, when you first become parents, and someday some of you will experience it if you haven't, you're so busy being a parent, and you're struggling and you go through so many things, but you don't realize, in a way, sometimes how much work it actually is. You're so busy doing it. But if you reach a point where you have your own children, and you watch your own children have children, and you watch them taking care of those people who are your grandchildren, it's a completely different dimension of reality. a completely different experience. So, I'm very fortunate. In this room, there are 4 generations in my family, right in this room. My mother, myself, my 2 daughters, and my grandchildren. All of them are right in this room right now. So I'm just very grateful. But the most important thing is we have to be grateful to the original creator, the designer of this whole process, God. And, it looks like, gosh, we went through all this trouble. There's my mom. She's older than me. And even I'm kind of getting old. And it's like, gee whiz, we went through all this trouble. What's it all about? Well, the fact of the matter is that someday we're going to leave this physical earth. But that's not the end of it. It's only the beginning. All of us are destined to live eternally with God and in the eternal life in the spiritual world. So our life on this earth is an education place. This is a training ground. It's education for us to grow our heart and our ability to love, so that when we finally pass away, and our consciousness and ourself, the essence of who we are, is not going to disappear. We continue to exist. There are people who have near-death experiences. People of many different religious faiths will testify. God designed and created the universe, and He made a promise that, we are eternal beings. And that's very, very important, because sometimes being a parent or a grandparent or a great-grandparent, it's not an easy job. It's difficult, but it has value and purpose and meaning. And none of your investment, none of the effort that you make to love people, to support people, to take care of people, none of it is ever lost. It's going to benefit. I promise you, someday you'll realize that we have an eternal existence. So while we're still alive here together, our goal, our mission is to go through the process. Learn to receive love from your parents, have give and take of love with each other, and then you should become parents yourself. If at all possible, become parents yourself, and eventually even grandparents. And then, God bless you, you'll graduate. You'll graduate with a 4.0 average. Anyway, thank you all very much, and God bless Parents Day.